Welcome to Tomorrow Unveiled, where we pull back the curtain on the future of technology, one deeply researched topic at a time. This week, we are literally strapped in. We're diving into what our dedicated research team has flagged as a really pivotal week, that window between October 4th and 11th, 2025, in wearable tech.
Yeah, that 7-day stretch, it wasn't just, minor updates. It felt like some foundational shifts were happening. The consensus from the research is pretty clear. The focus really moved past just passively monitoring things, counting steps, heart rate,
Right.
the old way.
Right.
We're now properly into deep human-computer integration, HCI. It's not just about getting data anymore.
Exactly. So when we talk about this strapped-in idea, it's like,
Yeah.
these devices aren't just gadgets you carry. They're becoming, well, real extensions of us, aren't they? Actively participating, often without you even needing to, look down at a screen, just integrating information.
And that speed up, that acceleration, it's really driven by three things coming together at once. The research team highlighted this convergence. You've got these incredibly tiny, high-quality sensors now. Then there's powerful AI actually running on the device, Edge AI, they call it, which means fast responses, better privacy.
Okay.
And then totally new ways to interact, using your body, moving beyond just tapping screens or talking at things. The whole game has flipped from what data can we grab to something much more interesting. What can this device actually help me do right now?
And that's really our mission for you today on Tomorrow Unveiled. If you're tuning in to learn, well, this week was dense. So much happened. We're going to distill the really important bits from all the launches and breakthroughs our team analyzed. The goal is to give you a solid handle on where personal computing is headed, specifically how we're starting to wear it, and what all this integration means for, well, for you, for your daily life, your autonomy. Okay, let's kick things off with the wrist. Still the most sort of familiar spot for this stuff, right? Section 1 is all about the AI Vanguard, and the prime example has to be the new Google Pixel Watch 4. It really shows how smartwatches are moving beyond just notifications and becoming these ambient assistants.
Totally. The Pixel Watch 4, which dropped October 9th, it really nails this new way of thinking, especially the hardware integration. I mean, if you want the one killer feature that just transforms what the watch is, it's got to be that standalone satellite emergency communication.
Satellite comms on a watch. Wow, that's a huge shift, isn't it? It kind of moves it from a nice-to-have gadget to potentially life-saving tech.
Oh, absolutely. The research really emphasized this. It lets you send out distress signals, get actual text replies back right on your wrist, even if you have zero phone signal. None.
Okay.
Think about what that means for safety. Hikers out on their own, people living in remote areas, folks working where there's just no coverage. It turns the watch into essential gear. There are geopolitical ripples too, right? Consumer devices now crossing borders with emergency access that needs new international rules, standardization. It's complex.
And making it feel less like just a tool and more like an assistant. There's that deep integration of the Gemini AI, right, woven into Wear OS.
Yeah, that's a really elegant bit of ambient computing design. The key thing is that raise to talk feature. Your mic just activates instantly when you lift your wrist towards your mouth, so you can ask stuff hands-free. Not just set a timer, but complex things. Summarize the news while you're making breakfast, or chain commands together without ever touching the watch. That's proper integration. It lets you focus on the real world while the tech does its job quietly in the background.
And really important for all of this to work well, they boosted the location accuracy with dual-frequency GPS.
Yes. That's a technical detail that often gets glossed over, but it's critical. Old GPS, the L1 frequency, gets easily blocked or bounced around by buildings, trees.
Right.
Dual frequency adds the L5 signal. A different frequency, wider bandwidth, much better at cutting through interference, those multipath errors. So practically speaking, the watch knows where you are much more accurately, even if you're downtown between skyscrapers or deep in a forest. And if the device knows its location precisely, all the services it offers navigation, emergencies become way more useful, exponentially so.
Okay, moving from the shiny new hardware, what about the software? Where OS 6 rolling out to older watches, the Pixel Watch 2 and 3, that felt like a significant move.
Yeah, that rollout started October 8th, and it does signal something important. It's a move away from the sort of buy a new one every year disposable tech thing. By bringing the new OS to older hardware, they're showing they're committed to software making the hardware last longer. It reframes the device. It's not just a temporary gadget. It's meant to be a long-term interface that kind of grows with you.
And the whole user experience got a refresh with Material 3 expressive design.
Yeah.
You mentioned reducing cognitive friction. How does that dynamic color theming actually help an average person?
It's subtle, but it makes a difference.
Yeah.
Material 3 lets the system create color palettes based on your watch face or background.
Okay.
And that color scheme then flows through everything, notifications, settings, apps. It feels cohesive. So how it reduces friction is your brain spends less energy just processing visual clutter, figuring out what's what. When the interface is all harmonized and personalized like that, it just feels smoother, easier to use. Like it's your watch tailored to you.
And wrapping up the watch section, the Watch 4 actually has replaceable batteries and displays. That seems like a big deal, moving away from sealed units.
It feels like a necessary step, yeah. If we're asking people to really integrate these things into their lives, treating them as disposable just doesn't fit that strapped-in idea. Making the parts that wear out batteries, screens, fixable or swappable, it shows that they see the device as more like infrastructure, not just a fashion accessory.
So that seamless stuff on the wrist,
Mm-hmm.
it naturally leads to the next big area, the face. AR glasses. Section 2 digs into the platform war that's heating up there, overlaying data right onto your view of the world. And this past week, the battle lines got drawn really clearly, didn't they? Between closed systems and more open ones.
Absolutely. This is super high stakes. Because AR, putting info right into your visual field, that's arguably the most direct kind of HDI you can get. And we saw 3 main approaches emerge this week, according to the research. Meta's all-in-one control, Rokid's open platform, and then Xreal taking a more pragmatic route.
Okay, let's start with Meta's vision, that vertically integrated system. The Ray-Ban display glasses paired with this new neural band, and a $799 price tag. That says serious computer, not just smart sunglasses.
Exactly. It's really the first big commercial launch of a complete HCI system like this. The glasses do the display part, obviously. But the real magic, the new input method, is in that neural band. It uses something called surface electromyography, sEMG.
sEMG. Okay, break that down. How does sensing your activity on your wrist let you control glasses?
So sEMG sensors, they're non-invasive. They just sit on the skin. They measure the tiny electrical signals from your motor neurons when they tell a muscle to fire. With the neural band, Meta's mapped these signals on the wrist and forearm that control your fingers. So when you make a tiny finger movement, like a little pinch or an almost invisible tap, the band picks up the intention signal from the nerve before your finger barely even moves.
Wow.
And it translates that intention straight into a digital action, scrolling, clicking something you're looking at, zooming in.
So it's like a silent, invisible mouse for interacting with stuff in the air. Why the wrist, though? Why is that key for making it subtle? How's it better than, say, waving your hands around?
Well, older gesture systems often needed big, obvious movements, right? Looked kind of awkward. The wrist is great because the nerve activity for fingers is really precise, right near the surface. Strong enough signals to detect, but the actual physical movement can be tiny, almost nothing. So it feels more like you're just thinking the action, projecting your intent, rather than making big gestures. Yeah. It solves that gesture fatigue problem and makes it way more socially okay than, shouting commands or waving frantically.
And the glasses themselves have AI doing real-time stuff with the camera, contextual awareness.
Exactly. Built-in cameras, Edge AI, so you get real-time visual search. Look at a flower, maybe, and the AI tells you what it is, how to care for it, overlaid right there.
Oh, cool.
And big accessibility features, too. Live captions of conversations for people who are hard of hearing, AI descriptions of what's around you for the visually impaired. That's pure informational augmentation.
But Meta's got this tight, closed system, and there's a big challenger pushing an open approach, Rokid. Their Kickstarter blew up, right? Over $3.6 million raised. That shows people want alternatives.
Yeah, that contrast is really the core of this platform war. Rokid is setting itself up as the sort of Android for smart glasses. Their whole pitch is about choice. Native support for different AIs, ChatGPT, Gemini, others. Users pick. And critically, they have an open software development kit, an SDK. That's huge for developers.
Why is the Open SDK such a big deal for developers?
It just removes the handcuffs. On a closed platform like Meta's, developers are often restricted in what they can build or need permission. An Open SDK lets anyone create really specific, customized apps for spatial computing without going through gatekeepers. It fuels innovation.
And hardware-wise, they're focused on making them look, well, less weird, tackling that glass hole problem.
Definitely. Form factor is key for them. Only 49 grams, super lightweight. They use these dual micro LED waveguide displays. Bright, clear image, but not bulky or super obvious like older tech. Packing serious features, 12MP camera, real-time translation in tons of languages into something that almost looks like normal glasses. That's a massive win for actually wearing them all day without feeling self-conscious.
Okay, and then there's Xreal, the Pragmatic guys. They got that time-best inventions nod for the 1 series. What was their angle?
They seem to understand that trying to do everything at once is really hard for users to adopt. Complexity is the enemy. So Xreal didn't really go for full, complex, mixed reality yet. Instead, they nailed one core thing, creating a big, stable virtual screen.
Oh, okay.
Powered by their X1 chip. So if you just want a huge private monitor for your laptop on the go or watching movies on a plane, Xreal delivered a really polished, reliable experience for that, kind of bringing the gap to full AR without all the complex interaction stuff, focusing on pure utility first.
Interesting. So you've got these really different strategies playing out.
Yeah.
Total control from Meta, open choice from Rokid, and focused utility from Xreal. This fight for our eyeballs is going to be fascinating.
Absolutely. And whoever wins, well, that's going to shape the direction of personal computing for a while.
Definitely something to watch. And hey, if you're finding this insightful, especially our viewers on YouTube, maybe take a second to hit like on this video, subscribe to Tomorrow Unveiled if you haven't already, and there's that new hype button too, apparently, that helps us reach more people.
Yeah.
Oh, and notifications on so you don't miss our next deep dive into the future. Okay, so the face is the next screen, but the really, really wild stuff happens when we go beyond visuals, when we start talking about using our actual bodies as the interface. Section 3 gets into the ultimate integration. Neural, physical, and sensory augmentation.
Yeah, this is where strapped in gets really profound. And the research highlighted some truly mind-blowing advances this week in brain-computer interfaces, BCIs, moving them out of the pure research lab towards, well, maybe clinical reality, maybe even consumer stuff.
Let's start with the invasive side, that Neuralink milestone that was announced.
Right, so they had an ALS patient who could control a robotic arm just using their thoughts. But the significant thing was what they could do. Complex, everyday tasks. Heating food in a microwave, lifting a water bottle to drink, things that need fine, sustained mental control.
Wow.
That's huge because it shows the potential for restoring real autonomy, real function to people with severe paralysis. It validates that kind of high bandwidth signal capture.
But invasive surgery is still a big step. The research team also covered progress in less invasive methods, right? Pointing towards BCIs maybe becoming more routine.
Exactly. That's a really important contrast. Neuralink goes right into the cortex, surgical risk involved. Compare that to Precision Neuroscience's Layer 7 cortical interface. This is different. It's a thin, flexible film of electrodes. It gets inserted subdurally, so between the brain surface and that protective layer, the duramater, through just a tiny incision. No big open brain surgery. Doesn't physically penetrate the brain tissue itself.
Okay, but what's the trade-off? Is the signal as good? And why is avoiding open brain surgery far less daunting, as the research put it?
Well, because it rests right on the cortex surface, Layer 7 still picks up high bandwidth signals, good enough for complex control. The huge benefit is it's way less invasive, lower infection risk, much faster recovery, and just. Psychologically, it's a smaller hurdle for patients and surgeons, so maybe the signal isn't quite as deep as penetrating electrodes, but Layer 7 suggests you can get really good, high-fidelity brain data without a major craniotomy. That could seriously speed up getting BCI tech into clinics.
And going even less invasive, moving towards consumers.
Yeah.
There was that Samsung Hanyang University prototype,
Yeah.
an EEG worn around the ear. That hints at this whole new category, neuro-wellness.
Right. Normal EEG caps, bulky, wires everywhere, not practical. This thing is designed to be sleek, comfy, worn around the ear. You could potentially wear it all day. The research highlighted two key things it could do. One, really accurate, real-time drowsiness detection, big safety potential there for drivers, machine operators. But the other thing was fascinating. It could analyze your brainwaves, alpha, beta, delta patterns, and figure out what kind of videos you prefer to watch with like 92.86% accuracy.
Whoa. A device that knows what YouTube rabbit hole you want to go down before you do. That sounds powerful and maybe a bit concerning for privacy and advertising.
It does, yeah. If a consumer gadget can track your focus, your mental state all day and predict your preferences from brain patterns, that's moving beyond just feedback. It's predictive profiling. Amazing for personalized recommendations, sure, but it definitely raises questions about monetizing your cognitive state, your innermost private data.
Okay, moving beyond the brain. There's also this revolution happening in the sense of touch, Hydrohaptics from the University of Bath.
Yeah, this is really cool. It's about making digital interactions feel physically real. Hydrohaptics uses these little sealed chambers filled with liquid, and they're embedded right into soft things, cushions, clothes, steering wheels, game controllers. The liquid transmits force, creating much richer feedback than just, a simple buzz.
Okay, so if it's not just buzzing, what kind of detailed feelings can it actually create?
Because it's liquid, it can simulate really complex textures and forces. The researchers showed it could create the sharp click of a button press, or the sustained soft give of squeezing something spongy, or even variable textures like feeling woven fabric versus sand. Normal vibration motors are just frequency and intensity, right? Hydrohaptics adds pressure, displacement. It's a whole other dimension. Imagine getting navigation cues on your backpack that feel like a firm nudge in the right direction. Or a steering wheel that makes your hands feel the texture of the road surface if you start to drift. It puts rich, intuitive feedback right into the physical world.
And finally, physical augmentation. Exoskeletons moving towards, maybe not quite mainstream, but prosumer. The Ascentus Modular Exoskeleton.
Right. The Ascenta system is clever because it's modular. You can swap parts, hip support, knee support, depending on what you need help with, squatting, walking, lifting. But the deep integration comes from its AI chipset. It recognizes your intended movement with 99.5% accuracy and reacts in under half a second, under 500 milliseconds.
And why is that sub-half-second reaction time so crucial for making it feel seamless?
Because with physical help, any lag just feels clunky. If the exoskeleton kicks in even a second late, you feel like you're fighting it, not working with it. By reacting almost instantly, the AI makes the assistance feel predictive. It senses you're about to lift or step, and the motors engage right away. So you just feel lighter, stronger. Not like you're strapped to a machine. It massively cuts down strain, boosts endurance, whether you're working in a warehouse or maybe even hiking.
Okay, so these techs are amazing feats of engineering, but what do they actually do for people? How do they translate into real-world benefits? Section 4 looks at the impact in healthcare, accessibility, industry.
And maybe the biggest impact area identified by the research is how the line between just sort of wellness tracking and actual clinical care is dissolving. Wearables are really shifting from fitness gadgets to proactive diagnostic tools, and that Samsung LVSD detection is the perfect example.
Right, LVSD, left ventricular systolic dysfunction. That's a serious heart condition precursor. How can a little watch possibly screen for something like that?
So Samsung got regulatory approval in South Korea for this AI algorithm running right on their watch. It uses the standard PPG sensors, those green lights on the back that measure blood flow to your wrist. But instead of just basic heart rate, the AI is smart enough to analyze subtle, ongoing changes in your pulse wave shape and heart rate variability over time. These patterns can indicate if your heart's pumping efficiency is reducing LVSD, often way before you'd feel any symptoms.
Wow.
So the watch shifts from tracking your run to potentially flagging a serious condition early, prompting you to see a doctor. That's genuinely preventative healthcare, potentially life-saving.
And it's not just physical health. Cognitive enhancement tools are becoming more common too, like Pearson's Revive wearable.
Yeah, that's built on Galaxy Watch tech, but it's focused on your brain, basically, your focus. It uses AI to track your context, what you're doing, time of day, how long you've been trying to focus. And if it detects your attention wandering during, say, a work block or study session, it gives you these personalized, subtle little vibration nudges. So it's not just monitoring you, it's actively intervening, creating this feedback loop to help you improve concentration, using wearables as tools for cognitive performance.
And shifting over to accessibility. These new AR glasses seem to offer some really powerful tools.
Oh, absolutely. Meta's glasses, for instance. Real functional help. For people who are hard of hearing, you get live captions of what people are saying right there in your vision. For the visually impaired, the AI uses the camera to describe the world around you in real time, identifying objects, reading signs out loud, pointing out obstacles, all hands-free. That's a massive boost for independence and just, being part of things.
And Cognition's Axon R also got a time-best invention mentioned. What's special about how it helps people communicate?
The Axon R is designed for nonverbal individuals who need assisted communication, and it's pretty revolutionary. It combines sensors that track eye movement, head movement, even some low-level brain activity, with a really smart conversational AI. It learns the user's intent from these very subtle inputs and translates them into fluent, natural-sounding speech. So it's not just spelling things out letter by letter. It uses predictive AI to try and restore the actual rhythm and flow of a conversation, giving back that fundamental human ability to connect through language.
And finally, let's touch on industry. Enterprise uses, boosting efficiency, safety.
Yeah, the payoff there is pretty clear. Exoskeletons like Ascentus, huge for reducing strain, fatigue, and injury risk in jobs like logistics, construction, obvious benefit. AR glasses mean technicians can see schematics or step-by-step guides right in their view while keeping their hands free to actually do the work. Fewer errors, faster work.
And neural interfaces for controlling things in tricky environments.
Exactly. Think about using something like surface nerve conductance SNC, which is kind of like a more robust sEMG to control machinery, maybe in a sterile lab where you're wearing thick gloves or a hazardous site. Enables hands-free, subtle control when touching things isn't practical or safe, keeps things running smoothly and safely.
Okay, quick reminder for our listeners on podcast apps like Apple Podcasts or Spotify. If you're enjoying Tomorrow Unveiled, we'd be incredibly grateful if you could spare a moment to leave us a rating and maybe a quick review. It really does help new listeners discover the show. All right, so we've talked about all these amazing benefits, diagnostics, accessibility, strength. But of course, there's another side to it. For this stuff to really go mainstream, we have to face the risks. Section 5 is about the critical challenges, the ethical minefields these deeply integrated devices create.
Yeah, and the first big one, the most immediate one, is privacy and security. It's a whole new level compared to before. We're moving way beyond just steps and heart rate now. The kind of data being collected is fundamentally different, much more intimate.
Right. Not just heart rate, but continuous high-res brain activity, nerve signals, where your eyes are looking, exactly where you are. It's a lot.
And all that raw data feeds into what the research team calls inferential risk. The AI processing this stuff can start to infer really sensitive things about you that you never actually chose to share.
Like what, for example? How could inferred data be used?
Well, imagine continuous tracking of your cognitive load, your stress levels, through heart rate variability. An AI could potentially infer your emotional state during a work call, maybe detect early signs of burnout or even neurological issues starting.
Okay, and the risk is, what happens with those inferences?
If that data gets breached or sold, it could be used in really discriminatory ways. Could an insurance company use your inferred stress patterns to hike your premium? Could a future employer look at cognitive load data from your work wearable when considering you for promotion?
Yikes.
It basically demands a fundamental shift towards privacy-first design. Keep the processing on the device, on that edge AI, stop business models that rely on selling or exploiting this incredibly intimate biometric data.
And then there's the issue of people around the wearer, bystander privacy. The return of the glass hole problem with always-on cameras and mics on glasses.
Yeah, that's a huge social and legal hurdle. If someone's wearing AR glasses, how do you know if you're being recorded, transcribed, analyzed by an AI, cataloged? There's no clear signal right now. Manufacturers absolutely need to build in really obvious, unmistakable indicators like clear lights on the outside showing when data capture is active. Rebuilding that public trust is crucial.
Okay, shifting to usability. Battery life. Still the elephant in the room for wearables, isn't it?
It's the constant battle, yeah. Even powerful systems like the Meta Ray-Ban display. The research mentioned around 6 hours of mixed use. For something meant to be your all-day computing interface, 6 hours just isn't enough. It's a tough design challenge, balancing power-hungry features with needing devices to be light, comfy, and not overheat on your head.
And the cost. These advanced systems are expensive, $450, $800.
Yeah.
That creates a real barrier, doesn't it? The augmentation divide.
Absolutely. These cutting-edge AR systems, the components for even non-invasive BCIs, they're pricey. Right now, it's mostly early adopters with cash or specific businesses. If being augmented becomes the standard way to interact with the world, but only the wealthy can afford the tools, you risk creating a serious societal split between the augmented haves and have-nots. Access is key.
And finally, the rules just haven't caught up. The regulatory and ethical gaps seem huge.
Especially in that neuro-wellness space, we talked about drowsiness detection, focus tracking. It's not strictly medical, so it doesn't neatly fit under existing health regulations like FDA approval, but it clearly impacts safety, well-being. There's just no clear roadmap for how to handle these gray area consumer brain monitoring apps. What are the standards for safety, accuracy, data use? It's a bit of a Wild West right now.
And the deeper the AI gets integrated, the more we have to think about, well, who's actually in control? Autonomy and bias.
Exactly. When you start letting algorithms nudge your focus, advise your sleep schedule, suggest health changes based on your data, You're handing over some decision making, and we absolutely have to check these algorithms for bias. If the training data was skewed or doesn't represent everyone fairly, the AI could end up giving bad advice or penalizing people whose health patterns just don't fit the norm. That's a serious risk. Hashtag tech outro.
Okay, let's try and wrap this all up. Pull together the main threads from this really packed week for tomorrow Unveiled. What are the big takeaways?
Looking across all the research from that week, three big tech trends really stand out as driving this whole strapped-in movement.
Okay, trend one.
Miniaturization and discrete form factors. It's the relentless push to make powerful sensors smaller, lighter, more comfortable. We saw it with Rokid's lightweight glasses trying to look normal, that Samsung Ear EEG concept. The aim is to make the tech just blend in, disappear into things we already wear.
Makes sense. Trend two.
Edge AI, definitely. Intelligence is moving off the cloud and onto the device, whether it's that LVSD heart monitoring on the watch or specialized AI models running locally on glasses.
Yeah.
It's happening right there. Cuts down lag, helps privacy because sensitive data doesn't have to travel, improves real-time ability. Huge shift.
And trend three.
Novel I/O, new ways to get information in and out, input and output. Interfaces are going way beyond screens and basic voice. We saw those wrist-based neural controls like Meta's sEMG becoming commercial, subtle, almost thought-based input. And on the output side, things like Hydrohaptics bringing rich, complex touch feedback into the physical world.
Okay, so based on all that activity this week, what's your prediction for the next, say, 12 to 24 months? What should we be watching for?
Well, first, I think the AR glasses platform war is going to get really intense. Meta's closed garden versus the open challengers like Rokid and others. That'll be the main battleground. Second, I suspect those wrist-based neural interfaces, sEMG, SNC, whatever flavor wins, will become pretty standard for controlling high-end VR and AR systems quite quickly. It solves that input problem they've struggled with.
Okay.
And third, those non-invasive BCIs. I think we're going to see the first real consumer neuro wellness products launch, based on that ear EEG type tech. And their arrival, that's going to trigger a massive public conversation and probably regulatory scrambling about the ethics and safety of monitoring consumer brainwaves. It takes the privacy debate somewhere totally new.
So that brings us to our final thought for tomorrow Unveiled today. The tech pieces for deep integration. They're clearly falling into place, as our research team detailed. But maybe the biggest challenge isn't the engineering anymore. It's philosophical.
Right. As this tech stops being just a tool we pick up and use and starts becoming literally integrated with our bodies and minds.
We have to ask, what's the goal? Is it about enhancing our abilities, our choices, our agency? Or is it about automating us, maybe even diminishing our autonomy? The question we really need to wrestle with as a society is, are we designing all this incredible integration for human empowerment? Or potentially, accidentally, for human subservience?
The tech is moving incredibly fast. The need for careful, ethical thinking needs to keep pace.
Absolutely. We love hearing your thoughts on all this. Whether you're watching on YouTube or listening on your favorite podcast app, drop us a comment. Let us know what you think about the future of wearables, neural interfaces, all of it. Thanks so much for joining us for this deep dive into Tomorrow Unveiled. We'll catch you next time.